Get off my lawn. The home run derby just isn't doing it for me anymore. I miss Chris Berman. I wish that we could bring Chris Berman. Was he CC'd on the try to hit home runs email? Dropping balls, all kinds of just disasters occurring out there. I say you're out. I say that's you're out. I'm calling it right now. Cal Raleigh had bats that say big dumper on them. You have those concerns, perhaps you're not the right guy for the home run contest. It's the All Star Game. And let's get right to it. Tonight, one of the things that made me fall in love with baseball when I was a little guy going on 50 years ago, the Midsummer Classic will happen tonight in Atlanta, Georgia, and that means that last night we had the Home Run Derby. And I'm going to say something that I never thought that I would say. I miss Chris Berman. I wish that we could bring Chris Berman back. Because, I don't know. Get off my lawn. The home run derby just isn't doing it for me anymore. And Pat McAfee. Look, I like Pat McAfee. I do. But as the great wrestling personality Jim Cornette says, how can I miss you if you never go away? And Pat McAfee is close to overexposure at this point. I know ESPN wants to soak every dime of value out of that big money contract that they gave him. But Pat McAfee as the MC, just, I don't know. It's not exactly giving me, Vin Scully baseball warm fuzzies. People saying that McAfee's exhausting, that ESPN is doing to Pat McAfee what they did with Stephen A. Smith, which is cramming him down your throat all the time until you just can't get away from it. A couple of years ago, I was pumping my gas, and Stephen A. Smith was on the little television at the gas pump. And I thought, I can't even get away from this motherfucker when I'm getting some unleaded. And that's where we are now with Pat McAfee. Cal Raleigh, the big dumper, Major League Baseball's home run leader with 38 jacks, going into the All Star Game tonight, wins the home run derby as well. And there he is. You get a championship belt now for winning that. McAfee giving him his home run title. His dad pitching to him, his little brother, the catcher. It's a great story. And Raleigh deserves more media. He really does. I'm glad that he's getting this moment in the sun, because for a guy with 38 homers and 82 RBIs, he really hasn't gotten a ton of national media attention. So perhaps the best part to come out of this home run derby is Cal Raleigh gets to, take a victory lap in front of everybody for having one of the best first halves of a season that I've ever seen in the game of baseball in my life. The other highlight from last night was the kid who robbed a homer. How many times have we seen the kids? Look at that. Ken Griffey Jr. there. Stealing one, although they counted it. It would have been better if that kid had taken one off of the board. It was Junior Caminero off of his bat. This kid goes back and just sizes it up and brings it back into the ballpark. And you know what? I say you're out. God damn it. What's the point of having these kids out there if they can't have the joy of robbing a homer? That's not the America that I want to live in. Can't count the homer after the kid robs it. How many times have we seen kids just wandering around the outfield like they don't even know their fucking surroundings? Dropping balls, all kinds of just disasters occurring out there. Finally, we get a kid who knows what to do with his Rawlings, and we're not even gonna let that stand. I say that's bullshit. You're out. I'm calling it right now, in fact. Cal Raleigh had bats that say big dumper on them. When I was a kid, the most out there bat that anybody in the major leagues had, the most famous one was Black Beauty, George Foster's bat. In an era when pretty much everybody was using standard lumber, George Foster had that distinctive black bat. The only bat, and in fact, the only swing that produced a 50-homer season in the 1970s. George Foster hit 52 homers in 1977, and that made him the only man between 1965 and 1990 to do it. That's right. Nobody did it in the 1980s. When I was a kid, Maris's record of 61 seemed unbreakable. That, of course, was before we made tremendous advancements in human cheating. I didn't know what a steroid was in the 1980s either. But that 61 number loomed large because the year that I started following baseball was 1978. So from the time that I was 6 years old until the time that I was legally an adult, I never saw anybody have a 50 home run season. That barrier meant something. And then in the 1990s, everybody and their mother did it, including Brady Anderson, who hit 50 home runs while taking his Flintstones vitamins. Perhaps Jazz Chisholm could have enjoyed some Flintstones vitamins before the contest last night. He only hit 3 home runs, not making anybody forget Josh Hamilton, certainly with that. And, well, it might have been because he wasn't even trying to hit home runs.
Do you think you'd do it again?
I told him next year, I said if I got more than 20 homers by the half next year, I'd do it again. And actually try to hit homers every swing instead of, trying to keep my swing. No, it's not that I wasn't trying to hit homers. I was trying to keep my swing and hit homers instead of just trying to hit everything in the air. I was trying to keep my line drive swing and hit homers. But, it gets better.
Did Jazz get the memo? Was he CC'd on the try to hit home runs email that I hope that they sent out to everybody? You're not in the solid contact up the middle contest, buddy. You're in the home run contest. Now, I understand why guys might not want to do it, because the home run contest is a little bit of a throwback. Maybe one of the better things it has going for us is it goes back to the era before precautions became everything. Every pitcher now, if they go past 75, 80 pitches, we're worried that they're going to blow their arm out. A guy gets injured, pulls a muscle in MLB, he's out for a month because they don't want to risk him coming back and aggravating that hamstring pull or whatever the case might be. But once a year, we say, let's see if a motherfucker can hit 900 home runs in 3 minutes. And hopefully he doesn't pull anything either when that occurs. And there are guys who have attributed, whether they're right about it or not, it could be an excuse, but there are guys who legitimately believe that they got themselves out of sync and out of rhythm for actual game action by going out there and selling out to hit home runs. So I will say, in fairness to Jazz Chisholm, I understand where he's coming from, but if you have those concerns, perhaps you're not the right guy for the home run contest. Now, it can't just be about baseball because we live in 2025 and politics and culture has to intrude upon everything. Because you can't just enjoy things for face value anymore in this society. So, of course, there's a little bit of controversy surrounding this All-Star Game, which is in Atlanta. You might remember that the Major League All-Star Game was scheduled to be in Atlanta in 2021, and Rob Manfred and Major League Baseball pulled it due to the passage of the Election Integrity Act of 2021 in the state of Georgia, which President Joe Biden at the time referred to as Jim Crow 2.0. That the state of Georgia was just sliding right on back into segregation because they believe things such as, I don't know, if you're filing an absentee ballot, maybe we ought to be able to trace it back to who that fucking ballot belonged to and who's supposed to be casting that vote. One of the things that the Election Integrity Act in Georgia mandated was that you had to put your driver's license number or your social security number on your absentee ballot. You see a problem with that? Do you think that the All-Star Game should have been pulled out of Atlanta because of that? That's where we were culturally in 2021 in this country. By the way, voting in the state of Georgia went up in 2022 during the midterms, and the number of black folks voting in Georgia also went up in 2022. So it was a pretty poor effort at bringing back Jim Crow if in fact that's what it was. And of course it wasn't, but it cost millions and millions and millions of dollars for the state of Georgia, the city of Atlanta, and now they've got the All-Star Game back. Jim Leland always had a plan. Fire up a heater in the dugout. You know, I always had more confidence in any manager who's smoking in the dugout. Earl Weaver used to, in his jersey, he had a cigarette pocket sewn into it. Sewn into the fabric of his fucking jersey. That's how committed to smoking that man was. And Jim Leland's thumb is probably the color of the school bus that you used to ride to school. But when the chips are down, show me a manager that's going to heat up a lung dart in the dugout, because that's a man that has a goddamn plan, my friends. There's no doubt about it. And speaking of men who have plans, it's my pleasure to welcome to the program this morning one of my dearest friends. Our friendship goes back, 36 years now. I met this guy by playing fantasy baseball, so it's only appropriate that he joins this show to discuss baseball with me. I speak of the great Pete Treadwell, Emmy award-winning former producer at ESPN, Pete Treadwell, who joins us from home plate of a baseball game that he's apparently about to umpire. How's it going, Pete?
Good, Ricky. Just hoping the first appearance on the show goes better than Jazz Chisholm's debut last night. So, I feel like the bar is pretty low.
I was so tempted when your picture popped up. I'm going to make a joke that only you and I will get, of course. I think you'd be disappointed in me if I didn't. I was considering when you popped up just saying, "Oh, hi, Peter." So there you are. Pete, I want to talk about All-Star Game snubs to kick this thing off with you. And, it is Jacob Misiorowski being named to the National League All-Star team that has a lot of people thinking about this. And I know every year there are always snubs. You got to draw the line somewhere. There are always going to be players who are having great seasons that don't make the All-Star team. But in this case, it's kind of, come on, man. For people who don't know, Misiorowski is a phenom for the Milwaukee Brewers. He's got a 102-mile-an-hour fastball. He's dynamic. It's going to be electric in the stadium tonight when he comes out and he makes his appearance. It's good box office. I understand that. I get the motivation to do it. However, he has 5 career games pitched, Pete, 25 2/3 innings in his entire career, and he's an all-star. What do you make of that?
I like to say that it is the fans' game and it is the TV, made for TV event. And, but it's still at some level, we want to reward the players that deserve to be there. And, yes, he's going to be exciting to watch and people want to see him, but this isn't the futures game. That happened on Saturday. Okay. And that's where we see the prospects that are going to be stars. He's not a star yet. I mean, his ERA is barely below 3. And, I'm sure we could come up a list of snubs. I mean, I've got one in the American League that I find outrageous, but, for 5 games pitched, I mean, yeah, he might be exciting and he might be a great pitcher eventually, but he doesn't deserve the spot in the All-Star game yet. I mean, you're right on with that.
Does it matter? But as a fan, and again, this is where I guess we're old school because we're Gen X kids. But for me, I was always led to believe that, yes, you can vote for your favorite players, and we used to stuff the Gillette All-Star Game ballot boxes and all of that. But the ethos of the All-Star Game is it was for the players who were performing the best. And if that wasn't everything, it was certainly a very big part of it, particularly when you got down to the reserves, right? It's like the starting lineup belongs to the fans.
Exactly. Yeah. So the starting lineup, okay, it belongs to the fans. And if a player didn't deserve to make it, he'd be out of the game in 3 innings, no harm done. Javi Baez is one of the most popular players in baseball. The fans vote him in. He starts. Okay, fine. That's no problem. But the theory is that the manager has the right to essentially right the wrongs and put the deserving players on the team. But it was the manager who picked Mizorowski, and I don't know. I have a problem with that. And I like to see things from an MLB perspective, and it's a fans game and it's an exhibition, but I just don't see it. 5 games isn't enough for me, and I don't agree with that.
Look, if he has a rough second half of the season, this could look even worse. Here's the tweet, Pete, that I sent out a few days ago. I said, if we're letting guys with 5 games into the All Star game, can I go 2? I've only got 25 fewer innings than this guy. My ERA is 0.
Right.
And I'm 53 years old. I've been waiting longer. It's like this is like every kid gets a trophy, Pete. When we're talking about guys who have made a tremendous impact on the game without being a player, without being a manager, how about the boss, George Steinbrenner? I was at Yankee Stadium. George Steinbrenner's fingerprints are all over that place. And his fingerprints are all over the history of the greatness of the Yankees franchise. A lot of people forget, from the early 60s to the late 70s, the Yankees went through a rather fallow period there. But this dude obviously brought the Yankees to a lot of glory in the time that he was there. 7 World Series championships that he brought to the Bronx, and it's ridiculous that George Steinbrenner is not in the Hall of Fame. I don't know whose feathers he ruffled. Maybe a better question would be, whose feathers did he not ruffle? But either way, let's get past any sort of pettiness and put George Steinbrenner in the Hall of Fame, because whether you thought he was a great guy, and a lot of the people who played for him and managed for him, even people who have rather public difficulties with him, would tell you that privately they believe that he was a good guy. But even if you think he's an asshole, you can't deny what the guy's accomplishments are. The resume is well above the threshold to be in Cooperstown. I don't know a lot about the culture of Peru. In fact, about the biggest thing I could tell you about Peru is that former Kentucky Wildcat point guard Kyle Macy was from Peru, Indiana. But I can tell you this, maybe Peru is pretty cool because sometimes they let the jockeys race without horses. Let's take a look at
Se da la
this.
partida de la carrera de jinetes inmediatamente. José Ávila por dentro con Rodrigo
doesn't even look
Alonso.
real, Ricky.
Están peleando la
It
punta y
looks like
abierto.
an
Lo hace Adrián
AI-generated
Tután.
fake.
Rodrigo Alonso por dentro, un cuerpo. El segundo lugar para Adrián Tután en línea. Con José Ávila y Legaro. A continuación finaliza José Letona. John Américo Flores. Chichi Torres. Gana de punta.
Fast.
You know what that is, Ricky? That's a bunch of.
Look at that tussle. Look at that,
Ricky. You know that's a bunch of bantamweights, right?
Tussle.
It's a bunch of bantamweights.
That's a bunch of bantamweight. I would cut through every single one of those guys. I'll fight 3 of them, especially since they're not boxers. Like you give me a 118-pound man that's not a trained boxer.
Well, of course you'd take him out, Ricky.
It's all about matchmaking. See, that's what I understand. Jake Paul understands that it's not so much about how good you are, it's about who you fight.
Absolutely.
So as long as you pick people that are a level below you, whatever your level is, boxing is probably really fun, Ron. You know what I mean?
It's just like I only honk at old ladies to get out of the way. If I see a dude in a pickup truck, I don't honk at him. I pick and choose who I get mad at.
You got to pick your spots to bully people, just like the guy on the golf course learned.
Absolutely.
You don't go after Nick Tarnasky. You go after you find a bantamweight on the golf course. And then you say, "You want to go? Let's fucking go."
Yes.
All right, Ricky, all kidding aside, though, your bantamweight thing's never going to happen. So you just need to abandon that idea. I'm sorry to break it to you. In the spirit of Ron not liking anything in your poll, no one's ever do. But listen, I think if you had a jockey race an hour after each Triple Crown race, we'd have to do something in between to keep the audience. The audience peaks at like 29 million, right? When it's the fastest 2 minutes in sports. Audience Peaks do some other race, and then as the grand finale, the jockeys get off their fucking horses and they do that race. I think for each Triple Crown, I think you would have an amazing moment that really would, I think, could showcase and make the
winners and the actual winner of the Kentucky Derby. It's a combination of the horse and the jockey. So a horse that finishes in first place and a jockey that finishes in last place, that equals out to middle of the pack.
I like that.
Yeah.
Note to NBC and Fox Sports execs. I'm working on the email right now. Pitch letter.
The jockey that finishes first gets to sleep with the jockey who finishes last wife. How about that?
Good topic for your newsletter.
Now, all right. Yeah. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to check out Ricky Cobb's Rewind, our bi-weekly newsletter. It's not just about small men sleeping with other small men's wives. We do other things as well. We've got the Margarita mailbag, Super 70s yourself. There's all kinds of great features in this thing. It's kind of a summary of what's going on at Super 70s Sports as well as on this show. We have a lot of fun with it. I call it your backstage pass to all things Super 70s and the Ricky Cobb Show. And to sign up, all you got to do is head over to outkick.com/newsletters. Use whatever email you use for such shenanigans. Sign up. It's absolutely free. And you can unsubscribe at any time.